Well, Ian, I'm Mike Lascotti. Welcome to the Metal Institute of Thrashology. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
My God, thanks for having me.
Oh, the
Blessed.
pleasure's all mine on this side.
Where are you?
I'm in Pittsburgh. Where are you at?
Pittsburgh, right on. I'm in Toronto.
Awesome. Now,
Shout out to, I love Limousine Beach from Pittsburgh.
oh, I'm not familiar with them. I'll have to look them
Oh,
up.
they're a great band.
All right. Are they like thrashy? Are they more Maiden or?
No, they're sort of like weirdly, they got some Skinnerd and, oh, I don't know, they're like early Aerosmith and, yeah, I don't know how to describe them. They have a lot of influences, but the singer is incredible.
What is it? Limousine Beach Club?
Beach.
Beach Limousine.
No, Limousine Beach.
Oh, Limousine Beach.
The
Okay.
guy used to be in Carousel.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check them out. Well, before we start talking about other bands, let's talk about your stuff.
Sure.
Man, Crimes of the City came out yesterday. It's killing.
Yep.
I've been listening to it. Thankfully, Curtis gave me a sneak peek on it, and it's
Right
a
on.
not that your last album was a pushover, but it's a big step up, I think, in sound.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, really enjoyed it, and I thought it really brings me to a like a Wishbone Ash kind of feel. Um,
Right.
I'm a huge Wishbone Ash fan, and
I
so
am too. I am too. I mean, like when we started the band, the two records that we were like, not to emulate, but it was like Argus and Sad Wings of Destiny. Like, sort of like, I always want to have this in there somehow, even if it's more like, faster up tempo shit. But yeah, I love
yeah,
Wishbone Ash.
and that was the great stuff about your music. Like when Curtis first, when we were first talking about getting the interview together, he was saying like, "Oh, do you do stoner doom type psychedelic?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do, but I'm more like a thrash and death metal guy." But then
Right.
when I started listening to your stuff, I was like, "Man, this is like you said, early Priest, Wishbone Ash," and that's like as soon as I put your record on, I had almost like a comfortability to the record.
Oh,
It
cool.
and while it was something so fresh and so new, when you're listening to it, you're like, wow, man, this sounds like all the stuff I love from the greats. Like, you know, it just makes it so much easier to keep playing and keep hitting that repeat button.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah. So where do you draw your inspiration from besides Wishbone Ash?
Oh man, like wow, I don't know, like every AC/DC to ZZ Top,
Yeah.
lots of 70s stuff, but like I like Soulfald and like some black metal stuff, and well, everybody in the band loves the new Blood Incantation record. I mean, like
Oh,
that thing is smoking. Holy crap.
the only thing
Um,
I thought about the new blood. I must have listened to it about 35 times, the new blood incantation. And each time I think I liked it a little bit less. And only because to me it didn't flow real well. It seemed really I don't know the word, but it seemed very segmented. It seems like,
right,
here's your Yes piece of the album, here's your At
right,
the
yeah.
Gates, here's your Pink Floyd, but none of it kind of felt congruent to me.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was just like so blown away that somebody would be attempting that and at this point in time. It sounded so fresh. I mean, I only heard the first half for a while, so it was like that first half is wow.
Yeah. And I I liked almost everything they did, and like you said, the most I liked about that album was the fact that they went for it. That was really, I thought, a gutsy metal album to release.
Hmm.
And the fact that like they were willing to be like, you know what, this isn't your typical style of metal. Let's put it out there and take a chance. I thought risk taking. If you don't take risks in music, you're not going to have any reward. And
Oh
so,
God, no, it's so boring. Like yeah. I mean, I don't want to shit on bands or anything, but yeah, where no one's making a shit ton of money or anything anymore. It's like, so why would you confine yourself to something and like not try and do weird stuff, you know?
and that's what I liked about your newest album. It seems like you take like moments from your old album, but you're incorporating new, I think psychedelic or maybe even like some stoner rock and doom elements it has like an old feel to me, like a classic rock style album, but yet
Hmm.
feels so fresh and updated. And so I get the comfortability of the album, but yet you're still like, man, let's dig into this a little more. Let's find some more nuggets and morsels buried in the mix, you know?
Right.
And I think your album was just as gutsy, maybe not as bold as Blood Incantations, but there's some definitely some hidden Easter eggs in there that the more you listen to it, the more you're like, man, this is great.
Cool. It's always hard, like, it's always hard when you're on the inside to see what's actually, it's going to be like, and like I know that as a producer, it's like I'll talk to a band, when I'm recording a band or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, this is, weird, and like it never even crosses their mind, it's like it's very hard to step outside of what you're doing,
Yeah,
and
so like
see what's going on,
so when you guys write and when you're writing like not only like your riffs, because are you the lead and the rhythm or
No, it's actually Aaron and I both, so the other guitar player and I switch off.
okay. So you
Um,
both have lead duties too?
yes, both lead, both rhythm. Yeah.
Man, they're solid guitar work. And I like the twin axes. I mean, I think you both bring different styles to the
Yeah.
music. It
Oh yeah.
sounds
I
really
mean, he normally plays like country and stuff. He's like a pedal steel player, and it's like so for this is very out of his what he would normally do. So which is what I like about it, because I mean, like the guy's his biggest deadhead. One of the biggest deadheads I know. It's just like hilarious that he's playing this.
yeah, I think your styles really complement each other. It's sort of like
Hmm.
yin and a yang. It's great.
We've actually played in like a couple of bands together too, which was like why I was like, well, this works because we've done harmonizing together before, and it's like having to teach somebody that is like, I don't know, it would just be probably not as easy as having somebody awesome come in and play it.
Of course. And if you already have the chemistry and everything going for
Yeah,
you, you're
like
not
we're friends, we get along really well, and I'm older, so it's like I don't want to have band bullshit. I just want to have like great practices, fun drives to shows where you're laughing and stuff, and it's not all just negativity. Is just I don't have time for it anymore.
I'm 100%. I'm getting older myself, and I fully just want to surround myself in positivity because that's the only way you remain positive, you know?
Exactly, and you just like as you get older, you just sort of like start dropping all that stuff, which is actually very freeing.
Yes.
Which is at least for me, I can say that.
Well, I'll have to vote with you on that one.
Right on.
So I noticed that you guys have a few dates in Canada coming up to support this record, and then more in 2025. You guys thinking of crossing over the border at all and coming to visit us, or
We would love to. It's just, well, putting together a tour that would make sense financially. I mean, that's obviously the hardest part right now is the financial aspect of things. And, it costs actually Canadian bands quite a bit of money to go to the US.
okay?
Whereas I think it's a quarter of the price for an American band to come here or something like
Wow.
that. So yeah, it's brutal. So it's in the thousands. So that's probably why you don't see a lot of Canadian bands down there is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love to. I haven't played in the US in, God, I don't know how long actually. 15, 20 years at least.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. A bunch of European bands were saying the same thing. Whether it's merch cuts or renting buses or everything is just more astronomical. And of course, comes with America, like more bullshit with paperwork and visas and
Hmm.
all that kind of
Yeah, and
stuff.
the merch cuts are just like it's brutal. Like can you like they don't even pay into getting the merch made, and they want a piece of it. It's like, oh my God, come on.
Yeah. It's anyway, it seems that venues, especially, I hate to bash them, Ticketmaster Live Nation just seems to be just trying to squeak money out of artists as much as they can. And it has
Hmm.
to be frustrating because, like you said earlier, nobody's making that 1980s Metallica paydays anymore. And
No, no one's selling those amount of records or anything, right?
yeah, yeah. So it has to be frustrating, which sucks because like I love a lot of Canadian bands. And then, as an American fan, you're sort of like, why won't they come visit us? We love them.
Right.
But, there's so
Well,
much
it's
going
easier,
on.
almost easier to go to Europe, like you know, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope you have a lot of success in Canada, and hopefully, maybe some things will break and you can come over here. And
That would be great. I mean, that yeah, that would be awesome. We would love to do it.
yeah, yeah. Who is there anybody you're taking out with you in Canada that you?
There's a local band called Tumble. They're just coming for all the shows, and we've got a bunch of guests. But Tumble are like fantastic. They just released a Pentagram cover, and Bobby Liebing was like, "This is the best Pentagram cover I've ever heard." So it's like, they're really good.
Yeah,
The guitar player Liam is he's probably one of my favorite guitar players right now. He's like it's for he's a lot younger than I am. He's like 24, 25, and he's just fantastic. By the time he's like 30, he's going to be amazing.
well, I'll look them up too. I have them on
Yeah,
my list
they're
now.
really good. Their EP's coming out I think in January. Um yeah, I think it's January.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them. Maybe I can help them out a little bit. You never
Yeah,
know. Yeah. I'm always looking for new bands, especially Canadian bands, in countries that I'm not too familiar with. In the
right.
US, we kind of get everything shoved down our throats in the US. So I'm always kind of looking at other countries to see what's
Right.
undiscovered. So, what would you consider your album? Do you guys consider yourself like a stoner band or a doom band? Or
Oh,
it was very hard to try to like. I was trying to tell my neighbor who's like a huge Wishbone Ash fan, and I was like, they're like Wishbone Ash, but they're not. And it was like very hard for me to describe your music because there's just so much in it, and it's so good though.
right. I think we're a hard rock band. Like I think, Doom is like there's definitely a Doom influence. We have, some very slow riffs, but I think, you have to be dooming all the time to be a real Doom band as far as
Yeah.
and I don't think we're a psych band because we have pretty short songs sometimes and yeah, I think hard rock is probably just the best way to do it.
I even hear a lot of blues in your music. I don't know if that's like a bluesy influence or like
I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, like Hendrix is my favorite guitar player, so it's like there's definitely, I've heard some blues by Jimi Hendrix for sure. So,
yeah, he might have played one or two songs.
yeah.
That's not a bad dude to emulate either. Same
Oh,
with Stone Ash and Judas Priest. I mean, at least if you're gonna try to, be influenced, at least you got some good ones.
right. Yeah. Not sorry, I won't diss any other bands.
Yeah, I try not to either, but sometimes it's so hard not to.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Especially nowadays too, where it just seems like every band is just ripping off. Not so much you guys, like you're more established in the genre, but it seems like up and coming bands, a lot of them are just ripping off blatant '80s thrash or '80s death. It's
Right.
just recycled music, and I mean, at that point, what's the point of being an artist if you can't come up with your own stuff?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you should always, I mean, that's your personality should at least come through in some way. I think that's also a problem with, the way records are made now too. It's like, there's like so many samples on the drums and the vocals are auto-tuned and all the
Yeah,
little things that maybe we would have liked about 80s or 90s records are now being just, like kind of not whitewashed, but, like smoothed out and like made perfect when the things that were awesome about a lot of those bands were not the perfection. I
I
mean,
grew
like
up.
if you like Venom, there's like no way a band could sound like Venom nowadays unless you just play, you record your whole album in like 8 hours, like, you know what I mean? It's like you got to be like truthful to the way those bands were, at least.
And I think with like bands like Venom, I don't think even in the production department, like you could have stripped down production that much unless you took a high end production and stripped it down manually.
Hmm.
But I grew up on old punk, like old English punk, and I love that like dirty, garagey, like recorded on your mom's 8-track
Oh
machine
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
sound.
that's the thing that I always loved about punk, like when I was a kid, was that the immediacy of it and like the like we don't give a fuck whether anyone likes this or not. We're just gonna go into the local studio that costs $20.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things with like the new wave of British heavy metal and punk, even though those two groups probably didn't like each other that much, there's a lot of similarities, like the way they released records, the way they toured, relentlessly, and just things like that.
And
So
that
like
made
the energy is very similar.
Very, very. And it made it an easy transition for me from like like from the Exploited maybe to like Iron Maiden, because those early Maiden records and even some of the Priest records from that time had like that punk, you might get shanked in the back of a club feeling. Whereas
Right.
like nowadays, like I'm going to Maiden next week and I'm not going to have that same dirty, garagey feeling from this
No.
massive production. But I feel too like that's the great thing about I think like the stuff you guys are putting out. It seems like stuff that's true to you. It's not produced down to the point where there's not one flaw on the album. It
Right.
just seems very natural. And while you probably don't have very many mistakes on that album, it still seems very organic, even after it's been mastered, produced, polished. It still feels organic, which
Right.
like you said gets lost in so much music today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean there are mistakes. In fact, like last week when because we're rehearsing for the tour and I was like going through some tracks to figure out a part and I realized that I'm singing the wrong lyrics on like the double track, you know, it's like and I was just like, ah, whatever. Fuck. At the time I must have been like, whatever.
But I don't record at all. Like I got guitars hanging up, but all I can do is make noise on them. So I
Right.
can only imagine though, like when you're playing that same song a million times, like it's very easily just to get off on a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
I see like Kirk Hammett dropping solos on tour, like just completely missing them in songs. So at least it's not like that bad, you know?
No, but that's I mean that's kind of awesome that he's doing that, you know? It's like that's sort of something I like about that band, especially is they're very human and there is a lot of mistakes going on, at least in the live performance, you know, because they're always like, well, not always, but they're they're trying to push themselves. They do a lot of covers, you know, so
And I'm
there
sure
are mistakes.
And I'm sure when you're like Metallica and you have like, I don't know how many albums they have, 15, 20, and plus all those live shows they're churning out, they're changing their set list every night. I feel I'm not a big Metallica fan. I don't want to crap on them, but I'm not a big Metallica fan. But I think a lot of dudes beat them up unfairly just because it's easy to do. It's so easy as a fan
Hmm.
to just record the segment of Kurt dropping his solo. But I mean, he's a human, like you said. And I think fans hold artists, especially guitarists and the guitar snobs of us out in the crowd, hold these people to like such high standards. But he's just a human playing a song. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
easy.
for sure.
So,
And I think that also like with Instagram and stuff and like guitar player, tapping guitar players or those Instagram guitar players who are like so fast, you feel like there's no way they're actually doing that. They're like it's been recorded and then they're playing along with that. It's like
yeah.
I don't feel like that like to do that live. It would be just like, are you crazy? Like, there's no way.
Or
There's probably 15 guitar players who could do it live, but a lot of the times, no. I think it's too much. There's no way they could do it.
And at that point, like if you're doing say like an hour long set and you have all this intricate tapping and everything else, you're going to be exhausted halfway through your set.
Oh
You're not
God.
going to be able to.
Or you have the worst tendonitis ever, and like carpal
Yeah.
tunnel syndrome, and
I went to just see a show a couple weeks ago, and this guy had a pedal, like a pedal board that I don't know, it was like a 4x8 sheet of plywood. And you're like, come on, man, you're spending half the show tap dancing. Like, I get it, your stuff sounds good, but like the set looks terrible because like you're just down the whole time tap dancing. You're not even like you're playing riffs, but it's just not the same to me. Like, and it gets to a point where it seems like the technicality of it is great, but it doesn't always transfer over live as well.
right, yeah, yeah. And a lot of whatever. Not to, I'm not shitting on this band, but a lot of like effects that work great in the studio don't work live. Like you can't even tell. Like it's like, oh, I have this distortion in this part, and then a different distortion in this part, and the average listener is like not gonna know like this subtle difference between the two chips in the different distortion boxes. It's like just
Yeah.
use one. Like fuck.
So it strikes me like what's your pedal board look like? Do you have a lot of pedals or?
I'm actually anti pedal board,
That's
and I
awesome.
don't have a pedal board, but I do have pedals that I just arrange in whatever way I feel like doing that night. Like, they are sort of in a way, but like, yeah, I got really sick of pedal boards and seeing pedal boards,
So
and
cool. So
yeah,
cool.
there's a couple of guys in town who have pedal boards that are just like, I mean, ginormous. And the idea of just carrying around all those pedals, all the connections that could possibly fail during a show, and after playing, I started playing when I was 16. I'm almost, 59 in a couple of weeks. And the amount of failures the more things you have in your pedal board, the more possibility of failure there is. And I don't have a guitar tech. And so if I have to fix something on stage, I want it to be as simple as possible so I don't have to like rip shit apart.
Yeah. I learned a lot. I went to see Michael Schenker.
Oh, yeah.
I was literally about 3 feet away from him when he was playing. So after the set, his guitar tech came out, and I got to ask him questions. But I think Shanker only had like two pedals on stage.
Right.
He runs that flying V with no tremolo, and so I learned like the old school ways of bending the neck and like
Yep.
some things that like I never probably would have realized you needed to do before, like all these inventions. So his guitar tech was telling me like Michael only likes like two pedals because of the same reason. And then you start thinking like he can get that much sound and that great tone from a lack of pedals, then clearly it's from either him or his pickups or
Right.
his amp. And I just wondered with your album having so much in it, like in the studio, do you use a lot of effects?
Actually, my rig on this record is literally two 5 foot cables, a treble booster that a friend of mine built for me, and then right into a Marshall, and that's it. And I used some. Do you know what a Rockman is?
Yeah.
Remember those from the '80s? So Tom Schultz from Boston made a bunch of effects in the '80s and late '70s, and so I used one of those as a secondary guitar. It's
Oh,
it's
okay.
like you would know it. It's like sort of like the Def Leppard hysteria guitar tone,
Okay.
like the chorused out, '80s shitty '80s guitar tone. But like I dialed it back.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds great for having not that much. I thought you would have like 100 pedals in the studio. It just sounds
No,
so.
no. I think in fact Aaron, the other guitar player, the only thing he used was he used a different head, but he used the same pedal as me and like the exact same pedal. And his flying V. So it was just like, an SG and a flying V. Sorry, a Les Paul and a flying V and, a Laney and a Marshall. So
Wow, really
very
simple
simple.
setup.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Well, I
did
find it's easier to record that way too. It's like, cause, like you just get a good raw, like a basic track. And then obviously, using effects in board, you can do, if you want to do stuff, you can.
did you produce that record as well?
Yeah, I mostly, but Glenn, who's the drummer, he's super integral to the way the arrangements happen because he's playing drums, so it's like if he can't make it from point A to point B because I've done it on with a drum machine or something in the demo, he's got to figure out a way to make it work. So he's a big part of the way it lands on tape.
Yeah, great mixing too. I mean, like everything came through really clear. Great mixing, great production. Uh,
Cool.
solid album, man. And usually, like I'll be honest, it's not something I would like play repeatedly, just because I'm a thrash and death metal kind of guy, so this is
Hmm.
like not really in my wheelhouse. But it's like that album that I just keep hitting play on, even though like you're doing the dishes or whatever. Like, yeah, this shit sounds good. Hit play again.
Right.
You know? Like
Right.
it's not a bad problem to have. So
No, God, no.
I probably has played this record, I don't know, 15, 20 times in the last 2 days. And
Wow.
yeah, I consume quite a bit of music. It's my poor wife loves silence, and I
Right.
just have music going all day, every day to the late hours of the night. So I feel bad
Right.
she married me, but whatever, I
Well,
scammed her.
sounds like a keeper.
Yeah, yeah, she can put up with me. So is there more plans to tour Europe after this Canadian tour?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to tour Europe. Again, it comes down to money, and like actually, our drummer Glenn he's in like one of the most popular country bands in Canada, like country
Oh,
folk bands, and I mean, they do like 20,000 people. So
oh wow.
uh, they're called Blue Rodeo. And so he's super busy with that, and it's just like we get together whenever we can. Like our bass player Anna, she's a jobber too, so like she just like she's playing with anyone who will pay her basically. So
Yeah, I'm sure it's tough out there now. You gotta, but the money's not coming in like it was in years prior. You gotta kind of go
no,
out there and
no, no,
hustle.
no. But yeah, I mean, every time I've toured Europe, it's been fantastic, and I mean, playing hard rock in Spain is just like amazing. You know, people love
Yeah,
it there. It's wild.
I just stumbled into like a lot of bands from Portugal and Spain, and they've
Mm,
been reaching out to me, and I've been doing reviews on their records, and I'm amazed at how much music comes out of such small countries. Like Spain and Portugal are clearly not the size or population, I think, of America or Canada, and it seems
mm.
like they're just churning out quality stuff, and the
Oh
scene is
man, yeah.
so solid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that whole like the late 70s punk thing is still like very popular there. You know, remember we toured with a band that was basically I mean they were a really good version of the Ramones, but they were basically the Ramones and they just toured Spain and they did really well. It was just like, wow, that's amazing because the Ramones don't go there, so it's like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's great to see that, I'm finding all these pockets all over the globe, like some in Costa Rica, some in Germany, and it's nice to see that music is just, especially metal music, is just spreading everywhere, like you said. Um, it seems that pop and like Taylor Swift or something like that would, translate to the other countries. But it's nice to see like some of the underground and like, um, less force-fed stuff is being pushed too,
Yeah, well, I think, something like, metal or, those genres rely on word of mouth, back in the day, tape trading and, all that kind of stuff. And I think that mentality really helps it spread, whereas somebody like Taylor Swift, nothing against her, whatever, don't know
Right.
anything about her. But, they're spending millions promoting her to get her into all these different countries. And like, just by, you know, somebody having a tape in, say, Pittsburgh and sending it to, somewhere in Brazil, and then people in Brazil start getting into the band, and just that kind of thing is like just amazing. It's so fan oriented, and it's like in a world where people say like, well, this isn't like that anymore. It's like, well, it actually sort of is in a way still happening. Like I know a lot of metal bands from Toronto go down to South America and just come back with the craziest stories about like the shows being nuts. So,
Yeah, one of our local bands I've been working with, a death metal band, Tiwanaku, they went down to Bolivia to actually do a tour at like the Tiwanaku ruins from like the, I don't know, 1200s or wherever.
whoa,
And yeah, it was so cool because like they're sending these music videos and like the backdrops are these ancient Mayan ruins. And
right.
you're like, holy shit, man, that's like the most beautiful thing I ever saw. And they're playing to these, like you think Bolivia, and they're playing to like thousands and thousands of people. But in Pittsburgh, you might get like a show of 100 people. And you're like,
Right.
man, this is your hometown. And we can't fulfill like these foreign third world. I don't know if Bolivia is a third world nation, but, they're not like Canada or England, you would say.
Right.
So, but do you think like the organic growth of like the tape trading and maybe the word of mouth like is a stronger than just the millions of dollars being thrown? Maybe that's why these artists like word of mouth stick around longer, like Metallica or Sepultura or
Yeah, but, there might be something to that because it's more natural, and maybe it's sort of like like a snowball going down a hill, and it just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you just get to the point where you're massive. It's like, I mean, even AC/DC, I mean, they obviously there was a lot of money put into that band, but like, they grew that very organically. In Australia, they became massive. They moved to England, they became massive. They moved to America, they became massive. It's just like you also got to put in the work. I mean, the band has to be willing to, work their asses off.
but I think somebody like you said with AC/DC, for example, they're still relevant today. And even
Hmm.
though, because they grew it organically, maybe that's why they are still relevant. Whereas, say, Janet Jackson from the 80s, they probably threw
Right.
millions upon millions behind her, and she fizzled out and faded.
Yeah.
Um, I, I don't know. I'm just really hoping that punk and metal stay around for the next 40 or 50 years until I die. and then
Right. Yeah.
and after
Yeah.
that, like I don't care, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think the kids, for lack of a better term, need to come up with their own new whatever it is, metal or punk or whatever. And there's going to be a band hopefully in the next 5 years that's just like, oh my God, just blows it all open.
And why can't it be Ian Blurton's, right?
Well, I'm older, and but I just mean, there's going to be a young band that's going to, I think that are just going to be amazing.
I agree with you. It feels like there's time that somebody needs to replace the old guard and get some
Yes.
new blood in there and some fresh blood.
Hmm.
So I hate to cut this short. We're starting to run
No
out of
problem.
time. I first want to thank you for, the kick-ass album and riffs. I really enjoy it. And thank you for also taking the time out today to, meet with me. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thank you so much. It's, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. These are the things that need to be done. So
Yeah, the
it's good you're
organic
doing
growth.
it.